And since he didn't get to do a speech
Well, it's
either.
very kind of you, because I was waiting for your speech so I could ask the question. Could the Minister tell us how many applications have been made by spouses who've come here for the 2-year probationary period for benefits, to try and access benefits? You must have some figures. Can you give us some figures?
Minister. Well, the point I was making there, it's about people that come here when they're not entering into a genuine marriage. And I'm not going to have a chance now to find the data. If you'd asked it earlier on in the debate or made a speech, I'd have been able to find it before the end. I want to try and answer the questions that people have laid out here. Now, let me come to some of the points which I think will address the Honourable Right Honourable Lady, the member for Lewisham Deptford. There are some areas where we have been flexible already. And in fact, a meeting I had with the honourable members for Slough, who was here earlier, and Bristol East, who was here earlier, we looked at some flexibilities which I agreed to take away and look at about the length that savings have to be held for where they occur from the realisation of an asset which can clearly be traced to that family. And I've said I'm going to go away and look at that. The example that was given to me was if someone sells a property and it was clearly their property. So I've said I'm going to go away and look at that. I said I would go away and look at where people hold savings in an investment-based account, something like a stocks and shares ISA, and whether that counts as cash or not. So I said I would go away and look at that. And I think the one where I am prepared to go away and look to see if we can put in place some rules which are not vulnerable for abuse. I think the best argument people made was the one where you've got a couple and somebody would be working here, but they aren't sufficiently skilled to meet the criteria of somebody who could apply under the Tier 2 scheme. I did think one of the examples in the report was a bit odd, because the example that was given of someone who would be earning £400,000 a year and had £3.5 million of assets, I did struggle to see how they wouldn't be able to come here on a Tier 2 visa or wouldn't sufficiently be able to organise their finances to meet the rules. So I did think that was a bit odd, but I am prepared to accept there are people who, if they could get here under a Tier 2 visa, that's fine, but there are people clearly who could make a contribution who couldn't. There is clearly... It's not quite as straightforward as people say, because you do have to guard against abuse, because if all you've got to do is show a piece of paper that says you have a job offer, I'm afraid the number of cases I've seen, it won't be very long before we have people manufacturing, setting up fake companies and offering people jobs that don't really exist. So there has to be a way of putting in place processes that don't lead to abuse. But I think that's worth doing, and I'm prepared to go away and do that. The Chairman of the Select Committee said that I did listen. I do listen. I see the details of cases where colleagues write to me about them, and I am keen to try and make sure that the rules are fair. They have only been in force for less than a year, and we have made a number of changes already in terms of making them more flexible. The other issue people raised was the issue about having a different level of income across the country. That was something the Migration Advisory Committee looked at. Of course, we don't have a regionalised benefit system, with the exception of housing benefit. Benefits are consistent across the UK. The logic for having a differential income limit here is that you would have a differential benefit system across the United Kingdom. And I don't know, I'm guessing that most of the members that argue for a regional level of income to be taken into account for this process probably wouldn't be in favour of having a regionalised benefit system. I can't take the Honourable Lady. I've only got 57 seconds left and I haven't had a chance to cover all of the points. Let me just try and pick up